Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Benjamin Flores. I'm the principal investigator of the University of Texas System Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation. I'm also the principal investigator for an Includes project that is part of the larger Aspire Alliance. Uh, Today, we're going to talk about an example of the versatility of graduate STEM degrees. Specifically, we're going to talk about faculty careers at community colleges. And what I would like to do is first go over a few items that I think you'll find generally interesting about where people end up landing jobs after they get their STEM degrees. And then we will invite Sara Rodriguez to talk more specifically about the project. And then she will introduce a couple of guest speakers, Professor Villalobos and Professor Contreras, both of whom are faculty at community colleges. And later on, then after their presentations, we will open it up for questions and answers. Thank you so much for joining us. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen so that everybody has access to this information. So here we go. The first thing I want you to be aware of is that many of our STEM graduates, they'll get their STEM degrees and then they start looking for job opportunities. And what's happening in the United States is about 26% of our college graduates remain in STEM disciplines. In other words, they actually work in STEM jobs. But as this chart shows, on the left side of the chart, you can see all of the STEM disciplines, starting with computers, mathematics and statistics, engineering, physical sciences, the biological sciences, psychology, social sciences, and ultimately multidisciplinary studies. And all of them are in color. And on the right side, what you actually see is that many of these individuals, the large majority of them, end up with jobs that are not specifically STEM related. Some of them are in education. Of course, there are quite a few individuals who get their biology degrees or chemistry degrees, and then they decide to pursue careers as health professionals, specifically medical doctors. And that's not classified strictly as STEM, although of course it's health sciences and it is related to STEM, but that's just how the classification works according to the US Census Bureau. So one of the key points, or what I would call a take-home message here, is that STEM graduates actually develop professional skills that are applicable in many, many areas. And education is an excellent option. So we're here to talk about that. And I want you also to be aware that as future faculty, you have quite a few choices. Many of us are trained to think that the only career options that we have are at either R1 universities or R2 universities. But that's just a small number of universities in the spectrum of higher education. So it's really important to consider your options. There are plenty of comprehensive universities in the US. There's about 400 of them. And there are smaller colleges, liberal arts colleges that tend to be private institutions that also offer STEM degrees, and they are places that you should think about going to. And of course, the fourth quadrant of this sketch is the community colleges. And by and large, this is what we want to talk about today. There's about 1,044 community colleges currently in the United States. So of all the institutions of higher learning, this is where you're going to see the greatest diversity in the student population, the greatest diversity in the faculty, and the greatest commitment to teaching. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. That's just let me add a few more things about community colleges, and these are the most recent facts from the AACC. First of all, you should know that community college, or the concept of community college, is an American invention. You're not going to find this elsewhere in the world. You may find technical schools elsewhere in the world, but the idea of a community college, a college that is connected to the community it serves, is truly an American invention. Most of the students who attend community colleges do so because it's a near home experience. As I mentioned before, there's 1,044 colleges nationwide. Most of them offer both associate degrees and certificates, and they have the most diverse student population, and many of the students participate or attend college. They are part-time students because they're mature adults. They have plenty of responsibilities. It's not just the idea of going to college and living in a dorm for 4 years. That's not the student population that is being served. And you can see that the average age for a community college student is 28. So that gives you an idea as far as the median is concerned. Half of the students are under 24 and the other half are over 24. So that's something that I think it's really important for you to consider, the diversity of the student population. And perhaps many of you attended a community college as undergraduates, or made the transition from a community college to university. If you serve in the armed forces, perhaps you also went to a community college and you decided to get your bachelor's degree and then pursued that at a university. The bottom line is that being a professor, being a faculty member at a community college is a wonderful idea. So one of the things that I would encourage you to think about is the fact that community colleges are essentially at the sweet spot with mostly teaching responsibilities and service to students. Research can happen at a community college. That usually happens when you are collaborated with professors from universities or research institutions, and that can be adjusted to your workload, but that's always a negotiation process, and it all depends on the mission of the community colleges. So you think about that. There's a significant responsibility in teaching and very little in terms of research. So now I will pass this on to Sara Rodriguez, our program coordinator, who will tell you about our alliance.
Thank you, Dr. Flores. Hi, everybody. Thank you for attending our session. And after that introduction and presentation, now we have a problem to be addressed. So as Dr. Flores mentioned, we are trying to bridge this gap and produce a sense of a formative experience that allows our emerging faculty to be better prepared. So this is where obviously the NSF funding comes in and assists us with our efforts. So we are the Texas Aspire Regional Collaborative, and we are right now, as you can see on this slide, we have 4 universities and 6 community colleges. So this is a collaboration between 4-year institutions and 2-year colleges, aiming to assist our emerging faculty in doing this transition. As you may know, if you are faculty or if you had experience teaching as maybe a grad student, it comes a point where it could be considered something like baptism by fire. You're thrown into the classroom and you have all this knowledge from your discipline, perhaps research or graduate seminars or classes. But the challenge is sometimes, and I know we as students or as past students can relate to this, you can be an expert in your field, but not really have the necessary tools to transmit that knowledge effectively. And this is something that we've all experienced, maybe ourselves in our teaching or starting teaching, or maybe in college where we know we have a brilliant instructor who just is not conveying or not facilitating the knowledge as effectively. So that is why we created this model where these 4 universities and 6 community colleges in collaboration are trying to prepare students who are not necessarily pursuing a PhD or a research career, but are looking into the possibility of teaching at a 2-year institution. So we have, if you can show us the next slide, Dr. Flores, we have this model where we have one-on-one or discipline-specific mentoring. That is the core and the heart of the Aspire program. So classroom observations, workshops, etc., as you can see on the slide, but basically we have graduate students in STEM who are thinking about the possibility of teaching at a community college. So once they are selected into the program, we have designed a 1-semester immersive experience where they come in and we talk about what it is actually to teach, not just the idea of how great it is to stand in front of a classroom and pontificate all your knowledge, but really what it takes and what it entails to detail. And this is by the collaboration of community college faculty who act as active mentors and also show our students the ropes about the politics and the rules and regulations of community colleges. If, again, this is your experience, you may already know that it is very different from a university. So in my own experience, I can say that I've served as a faculty member in the Tecnológico de Monterrey system, which is a private institution, but I worked for UTEP for a very, very long time. And I was also working for the El Paso Community College. So I've been able to move around and see enough to bring in that knowledge of I don't want to use the word disparity, but just difference in approach. So I enjoy doing this as kind of a mirror of the possibilities once you have a firm STEM career path, teaching being always this option. And our students with master's degree or with 18 credit hours, but I'm now stepping on Professor Villalobos' slide, so he will talk more about the process and the eligibility. And this is basically what we do. So those activities are geared for our students to prepare and think as a faculty member, not only as a STEM graduate or as a researcher, but as a community college faculty. So we do teaching philosophy statements, classroom observations. Thank you, Dr. Flores. Teaching portfolio development. And all of this lands into our students having I always say it's a Swiss knife of preparedness, right? Of a teaching philosophy and a teaching portfolio that will assist them in applying for a job once they're ready to do that transition. In all, it's a great chance to do professional networking and acquire active learning strategies. We also have a Blackboard platform that acts as a repository of information. We share articles, book chapters, networking, and of course, I just want to mention really quick before moving on with one of our first guest speakers that this opportunity and not only opens doors for a potential job, but also just teaches our students, our grad students, to think holistically about what it is to teach at a community college. And it's far beyond just having the knowledge and the STEM discipline. So that being said, our first ever completely online cohort was this last spring during COVID, and it was also the largest to date. We had 19 students. That was very challenging, but deeply rewarding, and we succeeded. So I would like to transfer the microphone to Professor Timothy Contreras, who is also a dear colleague with the LSAM program, and he's the chair of mathematics and engineering, and of course, the UT System LSAM campus director in Odessa College. And he's gonna address why a student would consider or should consider a career at a community college. Professor Contreras.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, why pursue a career at a community college? So if you have an inspiration to teach and want to make a difference in people's lives and to make a difference in your community, then you should really consider a career at a community college. A career whose focus, the career in a community college is your primary focus on students. Research is not part of the job description, okay? So your focus is on teaching and teaching alone. You teach to the whole student. So you're not only teaching your discipline, but you're also affecting the student as a whole. You're encouraging them, you're motivating them, because there will be obstacles in their way. Life is in their way. They want to make a better life for themselves. So not only are you teaching the discipline, but you're motivating them and you're a role model to them for that student to succeed. So another reason is a career, it impacts students' lives. It's based upon the second chance principle. So you have students who are coming from your community who want to make a better living for themselves, who want to make a better life, who didn't do well in high school. And this is their chance, their moment in life to come and make a better living, to do better beside their family. And so it's another second chance for them. And you have the opportunity to help them make that second chance a reality. Students also that attend have desire to learn and grow. So you don't have discipline issues. These students want to be here. They want to learn. They want to be better. And so you're going to be teaching students who have a hunger to be what they desire to be. And so you have that opportunity. Another opportunity that impacts students' life is a learning environment. It's thoughtful, it's very supportive. So when you work at a community college, again, it's student-centered. So you're going to be helping students. Your environment's all going to be about the student. And you have innovative ways to teach. You have, it's sky's the limit. There's no rules that will keep you from teaching a certain way, or you got to teach it this way. No, you're going to bring the best out of you to bring the best to your student. So the environment is thoughtful, very supportive. Also, it's a career that impacts your community at a high level. It empowers members of the community, new careers and new economic avenues. So when you impact the student and when you touch the student's life through teaching at a community college, through the discipline that they are pursuing, you are making their lives better. You're improving their lives. And in turn, you are impacting the lives of their generations to come, their grandkids, their great grandkids that they'll never see. These students that you empower are going to set the bar and standard of living for their family members. And in turn, they're going to be proponents and advocates of higher education, not by just preaching about it, but also living it in front of their community members. So it will impact the community in a positive light. Also, a career that brings exponential growth. So when you, if you decide to pursue a career at a community college, you're going to grow exponentially. There's built-in opportunities to continue learning and growing in your discipline. Okay. For example, for me, I've never read books, hardly any, just math books. But as I became a community college professor, now I want to learn what does it mean to have a growth mindset? What does it mean to be a better leader? And so you're going to have a desire to grow, not just for yourself, but to benefit your students and your colleagues around you. You have an opportunity for collegial network across departments and across the globe. So for example, I'll be working with the criminal justice department in my campus to actually build a project on using math and with mathematics involved to look at a criminal scene and investigate in the criminal scene how mathematics works in that. And so you have the opportunity to network across departments, and not just departments across the globe. Look what I'm doing right now. I'm networking with colleagues in El Paso and other places. And so you have the opportunity to do that. Another reason is a collegial environment with colleagues focused on equity and access for students. So you're going to have the same mindset. What can we do to make it better for our students? What can we do? You'll come together as a community inside the college with your colleagues to always talk about and always want to improve equity and access for your students. And the last thing is a career full of benefits and flexibility. It includes a reasonable salary. The starting pay could be up to $50,000 to $60,000 a year. And you can also have of benefits or opportunities to do overload, to do more than what the contract hours are, to have more, to increase more of your pay. You also have fringe benefits such as flexibility. You know, we work a 40-hour work week. So we can take that 40-hour work week and schedule it the way that benefits us as a professor, and will also in turn benefits the student. You have insurance, retirement, and paid time off. And there's also an opportunity for promotion, okay? So we as instructors, even though we might, let's say you just get a master's degree and that's all you want to pursue, some community colleges will allow you to, or give you an opportunity to be promoted through such programs through like professional learning communities. We have professional learning communities where we grow in our learning. We grow as a professor, we grow in pedagogy. So you always have opportunities for promotion in this field.
Well said, Professor Contreras. Thank you so much. So these are some of the main points that we try to share with our students who are thinking or considering these options, so they know that there are a plethora of reasons why this is a great trampoline or maybe a full-time career and investment. So now we're going to move on to Professor Villalobos. Joshua Villalobos is also the dean at Mission El Paso campus at El Paso Community College. And I would like to say that both Professor Villalobos and Professor Contreras are obviously highly involved with Aspire, not only as the site directors, but also they've been mentors to students participating in our program. So they're able to bring both sides of that experience. And we're gonna hear about why is the right time to apply and how can our students or emerging faculty can improve odds for employment, among other pointers on the actual process of hiring or looking to be hired. Go ahead, Professor Villalobos.
Thank you, Sarah, and great job, Mr. Contreras. I think if I heard that, I would have started teaching at a community college earlier than I actually did. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about what's the application process like at a community college. It's going to be a little bit different than what you would typically see at a four-year institution. So if we can see my first slide. Great. So for the community college, one of the job requirements is that almost exclusively we look at masters and masters of science and masters of arts. That does not mean we exclude PhD. That's actually fantastic if you do have it. But for most community colleges across the country, we do look at masters as the beginning degree. Now, in many community colleges, here at El Paso Community College as well, if you have an additional 18 graduate hours in another field, you would also be able to get credentialed within that individual field as well. So for example, if you had a master's in biology, but then you took 18 credit hours in geology, you would be able to get credentialed to teach not only biology, but geology, which would also improve the likelihoods of you getting hired, something that we would look at very highly. We also look at teaching experience, which is very highly recommended. Many of you are in TA positions or in a position where you might be able to teach a few classes or a lab. I would highly recommend you jump on those opportunities. So in the event that the community college is asking for your teaching statement, you have something to speak to. Next, please. Great. So when do we post our jobs? Well, once you find a community college that you'd be interested in teaching, or multiple community colleges you'd be interested in teaching, my recommendation is to check monthly for positions. So positions become available year-round, but they typically only are open for a few weeks, especially for those full-time or tenure-track positions. Now, adjunct positions are always open. Most community colleges will have those adjunct positions open year-round, so that way you can apply. My recommendation is for you to submit those applications in as soon as possible, because many times in a community college, we are scrambling, sometimes even a few days before classes begin. And so if you're within our system, our ability to get a hold of you and look at your transcripts is going to improve your chances of getting possibly that first part-time job teaching at a community college. My next recommendation is, once you put in that application, or before you put in that application, make sure you follow all of the application steps as requested by HR. In most cases, a community college HR is going to be the first filtering of those final applicants. So they will not let you move on to the next round if you have the wrong documentations or an incomplete application form. Many times at El Paso Community College, we will actually see graduate students that we think would be fantastic part-time instructors or PhD students who would be great instructors, but then they didn't follow that step of submitting, let's say, an official transcript and send an unofficial one. And so HR immediately removes them from the pool, and we never get a chance to see them in that hiring or the interview selection process. So please make sure that you follow HR guidelines. Once you've submitted that application, call HR to make sure that everything was submitted according to their standards. That's another great way for you to make sure that everything is copacetic with your application. For the interviews, once you've submitted your application for that job, it can take several months after you've submitted for you to actually get a callback. It takes quite a bit for us to actually organize interviews. We have to select faculty, administrators, trying to find time when they all can meet together for several days, because typically we interview anywhere between 5 to 10 people, and each one lasting 1 hour means that we have to set aside pretty large chunks of time. And not only that, we also have to determine what's the teaching demo going to be. So don't be discouraged if you don't hear back. Again, if you're curious, I would also reach out to HR to ask what's the status of the job itself or the interviews. So let's suppose that you go ahead and get that interview accepted. And so now you're set to do your first interview for your community college. It seems like almost all community colleges that I've talked to, interviewed, or been a part of will always ask for a short teaching demonstration. And that can range anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. After that, there's typically a 10 to 15 questions that the committee will ask you regarding your work experience, teaching methodology, or the knowledge that you have inside that particular field. So that's pretty standard for a community college interview. Now, as dean, I've done several interviews over my time, and so there's some do's and don'ts that I just wanted to pass along to everybody. First, inside your interview, be enthusiastic about teaching at a community college. We don't really want to hear that we were your second or third choice in your career. That's definitely not something that you want to do during the interview. Also, be interactive with your committee, make great eye contact. That 15 or 30-minute teaching demonstration is really our way to see how do you connect with your students? How do you convey information? Also, develop a really good understanding of current pedagogical practices. So look at certain things that a lot of community colleges are doing, such as think, pair, shares, gallery walks. Those are all different types of learning techniques that we use to engage our students. If you can mention those in your Q&A session, or maybe find some way to incorporate that into your teaching demo, that would be fantastic. The last thing I want to talk about are some interview don'ts. Try to avoid using problematic teaching tools during your 15 or 30-minute presentation. Things like clickers or cell phones, I've seen people try to do, but they wind up wasting time because it's not working, or they need to describe how to actually get it done. Also, don't get technical during your teaching demonstration. Your teaching demonstration isn't necessarily to demonstrate your full knowledge on the subject, but we want to see how you can convey that information to your students. So if you have to do a 30-minute presentation, let's say on photosynthesis, we don't want to know all of the graduate level knowledge that you may know about photosynthesis. We want to be able to see how you can convey those complexities to that wide range of students that you're going to be teaching inside your classes at our community college. So hopefully those can give you some pointers in terms of getting your first steps inside the door, and I'll be happy to answer any questions later on.
Thank you, Professor Villalobos. And as you can see, all these are some of the pointers and materials that we try to incorporate into our model, and to have an effective applicant, or to increase the chances of our students getting hired, and thus impacting positively not only their careers, but the local economy. And that is definitely aligned with the mission and vision of community colleges, as Dr. Flores was mentioning in the opening of our presentation. Quick reminder, if you have any questions or comments, please post them in the appropriate area of the presentation where it says Q&A or chat, and we will gladly address those. So Dr. Flores, back to you.
Thank you, Sarah. And I want to once again thank Dr. Joshua Villalobos and Professor Timothy Contreras for their expertise. You know, I always learn something new about community colleges when I talk to these and listen to these gentlemen. Ordinarily, we would have a breakout session when we talk to our students who are also future faculty. But in this occasion, we will not do that. If you have any questions about who, what, when, where, why, and how, by all means, this would be a good time. And then we'll just close with some remarks. So we'll open the mic for whoever may want to ask a question. Actually, I have an idea. One of our doctoral students is actually helping us significantly with this program. And perhaps Agni Prava, you could provide some insight about the program, things that we haven't mentioned. You're always dealing with the details, so perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about the program. Or maybe you can share with us what motivates you to be in this program, and whether it's being on the leadership team is helping you out.
Good afternoon. So I think a few things which like I could add is that, as Sarah mentioned about our blackboard, that is something which I think is a very important part of our program, where we try to ensure that every single component of the program, like the classroom observation or the meetings, we provide the fellows with some like background. For example, for the classroom observations, we do provide a checklist, and they are either with the American Association of Community Colleges or with the Center of Community College Engagement. So that way we help them to understand, along with their mentors, like which are the components they should be focusing on while making an observation, what they should note down, and which are the components they should be trying to incorporate in their own teaching or in their own practices. So that is something which is very interesting. And we are also at the moment working to make that experience better by designing a website where we will try to provide a one-stop resource for let's say different community college job portals and etc., so that our fellows and also graduate students here at UTEP can have easier access to opportunities coming up, and hence I think they would be more motivated to apply or be applying at the right time, as we were mentioning that, or maybe get themselves into the community college system before instead of doing it at the last moment. Also be able to access job opportunities all across our different RCs. And hopefully that is something which we are looking to expand in terms of networking, that students from the Texas RC also get a chance to participate and interact with the larger group. So that is something which I thought I would like to mention. And yes,
thank you, Agniprava. I really appreciate that. You know, it's always good to hear from the graduate students' perspective. Just one last thing I want to emphasize, and Agniprava brought this point, and I just want to elaborate on it, and that is that the regional collaborative that we have formed with our community colleges in the region are focused on serving West Texas. There are other collaboratives nationwide. There is one in North Texas, which is not so close to us. It's in the Arlington and Tyler area in Texas. And there is another collaborative in Southern California, yet one more in Central California, the one that serves the entire state of Iowa. There's another one in Central Florida, and more are coming on board. So what I want you to take home is the idea that you should look for these regional collaboratives, or you should, if you're in a graduate program right now, think about joining a preparing faculty, preparing future faculty program if it's available. Definitely talk to your LSM coordinator, talk to people in the graduate school, and they will be more than glad to point you in the right direction. So that's one thing that we always emphasize in graduate schools, that we want to see our students engaged. We want them to develop professional skills beyond what they're learning in the classroom or in laboratory settings. So don't miss on this great opportunity to prepare yourself for a career as a faculty member. And that's all we have for now. Sara, one last time, do we have any questions from the audience?
No, Dr. Flores, I am checking the Whova sections in the chat, and we don't have anything unless somebody present wants to open mic, but nothing on the Q&A. Hi, Dr. Acteson. Sure, go ahead.
Well, thank you for this wonderful session. So I'm Professor Acteson from University of Texas at Arlington. Now, I found it very interesting when Sarah started saying the community college teaching should be different, and different than the standard four-year college teaching. And Dr. Contreras elaborated on this. Now, considering the fact that we get half of our students to our university from the community college, so now should we really teach differently? I assume half of the students perhaps in the community college will not move on to a four-year college, perhaps half will. So in that sense, what should be the solution? Should we teach in two different ways? Should we teach half the community college students to prepare them for a four-year college, or should we perhaps change the style of teaching at our four-year colleges so that teaching will be uniform everywhere? Thank you.
The short answer is, I don't know. Thank you, Dr. Acteson, for that question. I think it's a very complex topic. I think this is probably why we do what we do, because we are trying to better the opportunities of those students who are looking into a teaching career at a two-year institution. So once we have established that, then a program design like the one we're doing makes sense. But these students are are exploring that possibility. So this isn't just for the students in the classroom, but for the students that are becoming emerging faculty or that are preparing themselves to become faculty, specifically at a community college. So I think that your question, more than taking it as a question without trying to not answer it, I would say that that's precisely the challenge, that we want to address those differences, because teaching at a four-year institution is very different from teaching at a community college. I don't think it's a matter of looking for uniformity across 2- and 4-year institutions, because in essence, their mission is different. I don't know if I'm answering your question a little bit, but I think that I would ask my teammates to assist. Thank you, Dr. Acteson.
Dr. Villalobos?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. You know, one of the things that we've always challenged is that the rigor is no different, in my opinion, from a 2-year college to a 4-year college. But what there is going to be the difference is the size of the classroom is obviously going to be a real big difference. And also a lot of our students are coming from a high school. I know Dr. Flores mentioned the age of the community college student, and that's actually dropping. And so we're starting to see younger and younger students starting to take advantage of community colleges first before going to the 4-year college. And one of the things that I think that we need to do at the community college side is that a lot of these kids have, or students, they have 13 years, you know, from kindergarten all the way through high school, learning through active style learning. So they know how to do think, pair, share, jigsaw puzzles, gallery walks, all of these active ways of learning their entire, you know, academic career. And then when they come to college, you know, that standard lecture for 2 hours straight, that's not familiar to them. And so at the 2-year college, what we've been trying to promote is blending kind of those active learning techniques with the 4-year large type of classrooms lecturing. So that way we can prep those students when they make it to the 4-year college and be more prepared to take on those unique challenges when you have that 300 plus classroom with that lecture where the teacher cannot do those types of active learning. So in my opinion, that's where I think the community college is really set for us to kind of help with that transition. I don't know if Mr. Contreras has anything similar to say or something else.
I think that was well said, Dr. Villalobos. There's really much there's nothing I could add to that, but saying that, you know, again, students that come to the community college, some of them don't know how to study. You have your traditional, your non-traditional students. And so your non-traditional students who are working, students who don't know how to study, don't know how to learn. We as a community college will take that and we'll make them to be lifelong learners and prepare them in such a way through the pedagogical skills, the teaching strategies that Dr. Villalobos listed, to make them and be strong and to strengthen them, that when they do transition to a 4-year university, they'll be able to succeed there. So that has been well said. Dr. Villalobos said that very well. There's nothing else I could add to that.
Well, thank you both for your comments. And Sara, thank you for your insight as well, because I think it's crucial that we understand we're not talking here about rigor in the classroom. What we're talking about is the approach that our graduate students need to learn about so that they can be more effective and efficient as educators in community colleges. They're not going to encounter the same climate that they may be used to at a 4-year institution. So I would start with that. You know, it's a matter of understanding where the students come from, and therefore adapting any teaching strategies that they may have learned in a university to what they would have to use in a community college. again, this is not about rigor. I think that everybody understands that if you're going to teach or you want to take a calculus class at a community college or at a university, we want to teach the same subject. But it's really an approach, I think, that has to be different. It's not the same being in a classroom where the professor is teaching calculus with slides or clickers in a university setting where you have 500 students. In another situation is when you have 10 or 15 or 24 students in a community college who want to meet with the professor, and they have additional things that they want to talk about because they bring a lot to the table and they want to be validated by for what they know and what they contribute. I remember Professor Contreras, you told us a story about students who go to your college who have been working in the oil fields for 15, 20 years, and then they suffer an accident, they can't go back to work for whatever reason, or they decide that they save enough money and they want to further their education. And the message there is that you have to be ready for these students, right? And so the community colleges have a huge challenge, and they're very good about addressing it, which is, how do you deal with a student population that is so diverse, that has so many backgrounds, that has such a tremendous differentials. You could have a student who is still finishing high school enroll in a dual program, and they're also pursuing college credit, or you could have an individual who has been away from the classroom for several decades. So therein lies the challenge, and that's what we're trying to tell our graduate students, that they ought to be prepared, that they need to think about the student population that they're getting ready to serve. Great question, and there can be a lot of debate about that, but we are more than eager to answer any other questions that you may have. Dr. Acteson, thank you so much for your question.
We don't have any other questions, Dr. Flores, in the chat, and we're up to the clock right now. So I believe your closing remarks are yours.
Well, I think we have had a great session today. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. I think that this has made you think about pursuing careers in community colleges, and know that there are people out there that are eager to engage you if you have any questions about this. So having said that, if you have any questions for us, do let us know, and we will be more than glad to answer them. You can reach us at aspire@utep.edu, or you can always send us an email. The team of facilitators are here, and of course, this is a disclaimer that although we are funded by the National Science Foundation, our opinions are our own and do not represent the standing of the National Science Foundation. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great afternoon. Bye, everybody.